Hey everybody, it's First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. I'm actually coming to you today from Breckenridge, Colorado. I'm at a weather and climate summit out here, and I'm going to be doing some studying up on some weather and climate and talking to some of my colleagues, but also hopefully getting in some skiing and hopefully post some videos. I'm going to try to get on the slopes today to show you some of the conditions out here. But I wanted to talk about the cold air heading our way. It seems like we've been talking about the polar vortex, at least people have, since December, really not understanding how the polar vortex works, how it's always delayed, and how the cold air eventually spills south, but you don't always know where. So now we're into mid-January. It's January 16th. This is the time frame that we were expecting cold air to move south, and we're starting to see that signs that the pattern is definitely changing for the U.S. So what I'm showing you here right now is what we call the 500 millibar heights. So we're looking at basically the steering currents in the atmosphere. And the first thing you notice that pops off the map is this big dark blue area. This is a area of very low pressure at 500 millibars. This is essentially not the polar vortex, but a lobe or a piece of it that is broken off and weakened and moved down south. And that's what happens with the polar vortex. If I were to make this picture bigger, you would see it looks like a big amoeba up here over the pole, and a big chunk of it, or at least a little vortice of it, has moved down into Canada. Now, it's not going to hit us. It's not moving into the U.S. That's all just hype and people not telling you exactly what's going on. But what the polar vortex does when this happens and weakens is, it spins counterclockwise. It becomes like a cog or a wheel, and it forces cold air down because it spins counterclockwise. So you can see what's going to happen is this thing sits over eastern Canada in Hudson Bay. It's going to push down surges of cold air. One of those is going to arrive late this weekend and early next week. This is going into the Monday time frame. You can see it's kind of a glancing blow. It moves down here into the south. You can see it all the way down to almost the Gulf of Mexico, but it's short-lived. It kind of moves out quickly, and we moderate a little bit. So yeah, there's going to be a moderation in between these shots. It's not going to stay consistently cold until maybe the second and third shot. So the second shot starts to come down, I'd say mid to late next week. So this is January 23rd, and this one is a little bit bigger. Notice the first one was kind of a sharp trough. This one's a broader dip in the jet stream. I mean, you've got essentially cross-polar flow, which is going to force air down into the southern and central U.S. So this is a much colder surge of air coming up late next week, next Thursday, Friday, into the following weekend. And you can see how deep this is. This is actually really cold air. Look at this. We're going into Saturday, January 26th and 27th on the Sunday. Look at that. That is a monster Arctic outbreak. I mean, that is huge. So the first surge is kind of like an appetizer coming up on Monday. The second and third surges that come down later next week into the following weekend are big. And then look how it sticks around. That trough or dip in the jet stream doesn't move out for a while. In fact, it's there all the way through early February. So the next natural question people ask is, what about snow? Well, it's too early to talk about snow potential, but when you have the cold air around that long, the chance of timing out a southern branch system with this cold air does increase. So it's a pattern. We're not looking at specific storms. And anybody telling you about a specific storm 10, 15 days in the future, it's nonsense. We just don't have that ability to accurately forecast finer details like that. Even with this, I can't tell you specific temperatures other than the fact that it looks well below average. I can show you the average temperature anomalies. You can see this first surge. Notice the warm-up this week. Again, the blues and purples are below average. This is a surge coming in on Monday. It's kind of a glancing blow. It moves out, and then watch this next surge and how much bigger it is, encompassing almost the entire eastern 2/3 of the country. And then look how it sticks around. I mean, we stay below average probably and maybe all the way through early February. So once the second surge gets here, which is roughly about the second weekend, late next week, let's call it, late next week into that weekend, once that cold air gets here, it's going to be sticking around. I mean, that is some really cold air to be sticking around. And just to give you an example of that, I'll show you the below zero temperatures up here in Canada. That's a huge area. This area kind of in the aquamarine color here, that's below zero. Snowpack and ice is being laid down. So what happens in this, and this is why your app and models tend to have a struggle with this, is once the cold air gets established up here, it reinforces itself. It's kind of like heat waves can reinforce themselves because you dry out the soil, which causes the heat to build each day, which causes the ridge to get stronger. Well, in these Arctic outbreaks, if you start laying down snow cover and snowpack up here in Canada, that can actually cause the Arctic high to get stronger over time. And as each surge of Arctic air comes south, it basically is moving over more refrigerated ground, if you will, snow-covered ground, which will keep it cold. So this is just an example of where that cold air is and how expansive it is up in Canada. And that's one of the things you look for sustained cold. Is there snow cover being laid down? Is the Arctic air building over Canada? And I'm just going to go out into the future here. So give me a second. The computer's going to load. I'm on hotel Wi-Fi. So we're getting some slow data, but I'm going into that, next weekend, not this weekend coming up, the following weekend, which is the weekend of the 26th, 27th. We'll go towards that weekend, and I'm going to go out as far as I can, my model. And again, I'm not getting into specific temperatures, just to show you the big surge of below zero readings moving into the U.S. You could see this basically comes across all of Canada and down into the U.S. So look at that. That's essentially cross-polar flow we're going to have, which means the air is flowing from Siberia across the pole and down into the U.S. So this is a big pattern recognition. The finer details, like exactly what the temperatures, the highs, the lows are, just know it's going to be well below average. Those aren't things we really know. We just know this overall pattern is setting up for much colder air. And then for snow lovers and winter weather lovers, man, if you have cold air around this long, the chances, or at least the probabilities or odds of timing one out with a storm definitely increases, though there's nothing specific in the forecast right now. So if you have a home, if you have an apartment, if you have a car, it might be a good idea now, while it's still somewhat mild, to start thinking about, we're going to have an extended period of cold temperatures. So is my furnace up to snuff? Are all my spigots outside covered? Do I have my hoses, garden hose detached? Did I winterize my irrigation system? Is my car ready for this? Just be ready, because this is going to be very similar to last January when we had an extended period of really, really cold air. I could see this happening at the end of January into early February. Of course, I'll be posting updates throughout the week from here in Breckenridge, studying weather and climate out here, so we'll definitely be posting updates as we get closer to the weekend. The good news, not much weather this week except for some rain and some mild temperatures, but we'll talk more about that over the next couple of days. Have a great, great Wednesday, everybody.